How's it going, everybody? It's Gray 1951, back for another video. This is going to be a little bit of an update on what I've been watching lately, both at the theater and at home. I haven't done one of these in a long time, so let's see how it goes. Hope you find some of this interesting and worthwhile. All right, first of all, for the new movie I saw last night, I saw a film called While We're Young. Highly recommended. It stars, my God, I just forgot who's in it. It stars Ben Stiller and Naomi Watts, supporting performance by Charles Grodin. Always good to see him. And it's just such a cool movie. It's not a comedy, as you might think, with Ben Stiller being in it. It's a very serious film, actually. But it has to do with Ben and Naomi play a married couple in their 40s. They have a very good life. They love each other. But their life has become a little bit stale, a little bit routine. And they become friends with a young couple in their 20s, a young married couple. And they are so impressed by these two kids. I mean, they're half their age, right? And they're just so impressed by their fresh outlook on life, their spontaneity, and the fact that they just, everything seems to be new and wonderful. And they find themselves questioning their own lives and their own values. And they become very close to these two people, and they start kind of imitating the things that they do, imitating the way they dress. And of course, as the film goes on, these two wonderful, pure young people seem to be not quite what they turn out to be not what they seem to be. And it takes a very serious turn. Good film, highly recommended. All right, now let's go back to what I've been watching at home. So let's go from the present day all the way back to the year 1915 for this silent classic, The Birth of a Nation, directed by D.W. Griffith. And I've had this on the shelf for about 3 years, and I think, like a lot of you, I buy films that I might buy 3 or 4 at a time and don't get around to watching them, sometimes for a period of years. And I've been trying to change that. So I'm starting to get on, look at my shelves and see what I have not yet watched, rather than always rushing out and buying something new. So this is one that I finally got around to seeing, all 187 minutes of it. And to my understanding, the before Griffith cut it, it was a lot longer than that. Anyway, 187 minutes. So this is considered to be a classic landmark film, mainly because it was the first epic film that was ever made, and Griffith was a very creative director for his time in his use of the camera, special effects. Part of this is color tinted, and but then the fact that it's a classic has to be weighed against the controversial aspect of the film, which is its portrayal of African Americans, which can't be described as anything else but ugly and deplorable. Now, of course, this is about the Civil War and the aftermath of the Civil War in the South. It focuses on two families, one from the North, one from the South, and they start intertwining with each other before the war begins, during the war, and then afterwards. And it's a very dramatic story. One of the stars is Lillian Gish, and it could be said that this is the film that made her into a star. The period of Reconstruction in the South after the Civil War was a horribly difficult time for the people of the South. And I don't pretend to know that much about the Civil War. Like most Americans, I'm ignorant of my own history. I think I'm pretty well justified in saying that, but I don't know a lot about it. But this is based on a story called The Klansman, which was made into a play called The Klansman. And when Griffith was making this film, the working title was The Klansman. I think it was right before it was released that he changed it to The Birth of a Nation. And in this film, the Ku Klux Klan are the heroes, right? They are the heroes at the end of the film. I can tell you that much. For those of you who haven't seen it, you probably already know about that. And it's very controversial. A lot of African American actors and actresses are in the film, but they are only in very minor parts. The so-called black people who are main characters or featured characters in the film are all played by white actors in blackface, right? A tried and true custom in American stage and film and minstrel shows and all that nonsense. So it really is objectionable in many, many places. Now, D.W. Griffith claimed that he was not trying to make a racist statement with this film. He was just trying to tell a story from a certain point of view. Lillian Gish, to the end of her life, defended him and said the very same thing. But I don't think, personally, I can't look at this and see it that way. And especially when you realize that the aftermath of this film, one of the lasting effects is the fact that the Ku Klux Klan in the South, which by this time was pretty much dead, it had a dramatic resurgence in the South, and just, you know, for up until present day, just causing all kinds of misery and havoc. So my advice to anybody who wants to think of themselves as being a cinephile, and you have no idea how badly I wish to be classified as that, I'm tongue-in-cheek here when I say that, I would say see this movie once and just try to keep an open mind about it, and just look at it for its historical value, and then make up your own mind about how you feel about it. And I doubt if I will be revisiting this anytime soon, but I am very glad that I watched it. Even as a kind of a primitive statement for the way they made films back then. For example, I was surprised that there were no dialogue cards. They would just have a card that would set up a scene, like John and Mary talk about their family or what happened last night. Then it shows John and Mary with their mouths moving and gesturing all over the place, talking for several minutes, but you have no idea what they're saying because there are no title cards. I don't know why they did it that way. But anyway, so it is an interesting film to watch. I would say it's important historically, and then you could probably pretty much put it back on the shelf and not watch it again. Okay, going a few years past that to the early sound era, here's a film called Rain, starring Joan Crawford and Walter Huston. This, of course, is based on a story by W. Somerset Maugham. The main character in the film, played by Miss Crawford, is Sadie Thompson, who is, I guess she's supposed to be a prostitute. Of course, that's not actually said in the film. But the way she's made up and the way she acts toward men and all that, I mean, I guess that's what she's supposed to be. But she's a good time girl who likes men, right? And she is stranded on this tropical island somewhere with a lot of other people who are not able to get out because they are stuck in the middle of a rainy season, or there's something wrong with the ship. I've already forgotten some of the details. But among the people who are staying there is Walter Huston and his wife, played by Beulah Bondi. They happen to be missionaries, Christian missionaries. And this man, of course, being the religious person that he is, he and Sadie Thompson are at odds immediately, and that is the main conflict of the film. And I have to say that this film is interesting as a curio of that period of time. Very stagey and very slow in a lot of places, but whenever Joan Crawford comes on the screen, she lights the screen up. She is absolutely wonderful in this, and it proves what a good actress she was. She is the spark of life in this movie. Walter Huston was also very good, but not nearly as good as Joan Crawford. Okay, Rain, check it out. Now moving into the present day, here's a film that I picked up at an estate sale that I never heard of before. It's called Hesher, and this was released in 2010. It stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is one of my favorite young actors, Rainn Wilson, Natalie Portman, Piper Laurie, and a young actor, a kid named Devin Brochu, or it's spelled B-R-O-C-H-U, who is very, very good at this movie. And this is a story about a family which has suffered a tragedy. The mother, the wife of the family, has been killed. Rainn Wilson was the husband. This little David Brochu is the son. And they are living now with Piper Laurie, who is the grandmother. And Rainn Wilson is just extremely depressed and can't function. So exploding into their life is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's kind of a modern-day hippie. He's got long hair all the way down the middle of his back. Totally kind of an amoral person, or he seems to be anyway, who just kind of explodes into their life and kind of wakes them up, actually. He brings a lot of conflict, but he also brings some good stuff, too. And very good performance by everybody concerned. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is pretty dynamic, I think. Okay, another film I watched that I knew nothing about before I picked this up for $3, I think, is The Number 23, starring Jim Carrey. 2007, directed by Joel Schumacher. Also starring Virginia Madsen, Logan Lerman, and Danny Huston. Danny Huston happens to be the son of director John Huston. Very odd little film about Jim Carrey plays a guy who finds this book in a used bookstore. I think actually his wife picks it up. It's about the number 23 and about this man, this author's obsession with the number 23 and everything that he goes through because of that number. And of course, Jim Carrey becomes obsessed himself, and he starts having these dreams and delusions about things from the book, and his somehow he thinks the book is being written about him, so he just becomes totally obsessive. Very good film. You know what it reminds me of is another film that I liked that's fairly recent called The Machinist, starring Christian Bale, where he starts finding all these strange clues and symbols that seem to have something to do with his life, and he's trying to figure it all out. And that's what came to mind. This is very good. Jim Carrey is very good in this film. Good cinematography too. The next film is Prisoners, starring Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal. Let's see who else is in it. We have Viola Davis, Maria Bello, Terrence Howard, Melissa Leo, and Paul Dana. Very, very interesting and very well done film. It's another one of those films that takes you into places you were not expecting it to go, and it gets very, very creepy. Jake Gyllenhaal seems to be making a career of doing films that have one-word titles. We're Prisoners, Brothers, which is my next film, Rendition, Enemy, what else? Nightcrawler. He's very good. Hugh Jackman is also very good, and yeah, very difficult to watch in some places, but certainly worthwhile. So now we get to Brothers, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Tobey Maguire, Natalie Portman, Sam Shepard, and Mara Winningham. Okay, this was directed by, who was it directed by? I have no idea. I don't really care. Anyway, this is from 2013, and it's about two brothers. Jake and Toby play two brothers who, one is kind of a ne'er-do-well slacker, that's Jake, and Toby is the good guy with the family and the kids. He's married to Natalie Portman, has a couple of cute kids, and he's off in, I believe it's Afghanistan, fighting the war. And so Jake becomes kind of a guardian for his sister-in-law and her children, and they start to draw closer. Now, I like this film very much, and I was watching it probably up until about the halfway point. And then there was something that was so violent and so hideous and so ugly that it made me stop watching it. And I have not yet finished the film. And for those of you who have seen this film, you might know what I'm referring to. And for those of you who haven't, I'm not going to spoil it for you in case you might want to see it. But I may actually revisit this film and finish it after a while. Okay, the next film I saw, I actually went out and picked up a couple of films at Walmart very recently because they were on sale, and I was kind of curious about them. And the first one is Killer Joe, from the year 2011, directed by none other than William Friedkin, Mr. Exorcist himself. Stars Matthew McConaughey, Emile Hirsch, Juno Temple, Thomas Hayden Church, Gina Gershon. Very interesting. Can only be described as a darkly comic film, even though a lot of it is done with just deadpan seriousness. Very good performances by everybody involved. One of the best things that McConaughey's done. I mean, he gets better and better all the time. And in a way, he's kind of playing his Texas good old boy persona, which basically is who he is. He seems to be finding more and more facets to that persona and using it in his performances. Very good movie. How do I describe it? It's about this incredibly dysfunctional, messed up family. That Emile Hirsch is the son, Thomas Hayden Church is the father, Gina Gershon is the sexy stepmother, and Juno Temple is the younger sister. The son and the dad, because they need money for all kinds of stupid reasons, they decide to kill mom, who of course is divorced from Thomas Hayden Church, and Emile Hirsch says he hates her. Let's kill her. Her insurance policy, supposedly the beneficiary is the young girl played by Juno Temple, and if they think that if they can kill her, then they can get that money in the family, right? So that's what happens. So they hire Killer Joe, Matthew McConaughey, who happens to be a police officer, but he's also a hired killer. So he's about as corrupt as it gets, and he immediately has a strong sexual attraction toward the young girl, and he makes a deal with these guys who don't have the money to pay him. Okay, I want the girl. So that shows you what a creepy plot line it is, and it gets better, or should I say it gets worse. Explodes into hideous violence at the end, unfortunately, but the rest of it is so good that I have to say I like this movie. All right, once again, Jake Gyllenhaal, and a one-word title. This is Enemy, from the year, let's see, 2013. Very interesting film, made in Canada. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a guy who is a professor, and he's watching a movie one night on his laptop, and he sees an actor who looks exactly like him, and he's just totally freaked out. So he investigates this guy and eventually starts looking for him. They meet, all kinds of weirdness happens, and you wonder what in the hell is really going on here. Is there a dream? Is this a dream that somebody is having, or is somebody schizophrenic? It's hard to tell all through the film. Isabella Rossellini is also in it. She plays Jake's mother, well, the mother to one of the characters anyway. And it goes along on its incredibly strange way. And then in the very final scene, it turns into a horror film. For about 5 seconds, it becomes a horror film. If you've seen this, you know what I'm talking about. But it is a very, very interesting movie, and Jake Gyllenhaal is very good in this. Okay, so finally, here's a film from MGM in 1960. It's called The Subterraneans, and I bought this from the Video Beat, and all of their covers pretty much look the same. But here is a picture of the poster from the film on the back here. So, 1960, directed by Ronald McDougall. This is based on a novel by Jack Kerouac, who of course is one of the founders, leaders, whatever you want to say, spokesmen of the beatnik movement, or as they would call it, the beat movement. They were called beatniks by popular culture, who were kind of putting them down. But it's kind of, there weren't a lot of, I don't think there were any really good movies about the beat movement back when it was happening, back during the 1950s and early 60s. They never really got it right, I don't think. But this was at least a serious attempt to show that movement and some of the people that were involved and some of the ideas that they had. And it's not entirely successful, but I don't know. It's hard not to love a film that has great jazz musicians featured in the movie. The music is by Andre Previn, but it features jazz performances by people like, oh my God, Jerry Mulligan, Art Pepper, Red Miller, Shelley Mann, Art Farmer, and singer Carmen McRae, who is wonderful. And it also has a great group of actors. It has Leslie Caron, George Peppard, Janice Rule, Roddy McDowall, Scott Marlowe, one of my favorite actors from that era, Jim Hutton, Ann Seymour, and even Artie Johnson, who was, of course, the guy in Laugh-In. He never would have expected to see him doing a halfway serious performance. It also features a very young Paul Sand. Remember him? He's in it for a few minutes. And an uncredited performance by Nanette Fambray, right, who appears in a party sequence. And I think the only reason she's in this movie is because she was married to the director at the time. So anyway, it really is kind of a standard movie romance between Leslie Caron and George Peppard, who are two very lost, confused, and somewhat broken people who are very much in love and have this strong attraction to each other, but they are the wrong people for each other. And it's that there have been a lot of movies made with the same kind of subject matter, but this just has the ambiance of the so-called beatnik scene, and it features dialogue that sounds like they're all reading something out of a philosophy book, right? Or a lot of poetry. Of course, they're always listening to jazz, and it just has that ambiance. But in a way, it's just kind of a standard love story of two people who are certainly not made for each other, but they find each other anyway. But it's hard not to love a film that has all that kind of music and that kind of atmosphere, and I really enjoyed that movie a lot. So that is my update of what I've been watching lately, and I hope that you found something in this worthwhile, and you are certainly welcome to comment. Let me know. Thanks for watching.